we want to see things like a rural homes electrification mission, right? Rural areas tend to spend twice as much on transport. So if they're on EVs, they're going to save a fortune. They spend more on heating because they're on propane or on heating oil.
My parents have a oil tank in their backyard, which it's 2025. That feels crazy, no?
Right, exactly. And if we give them heat pumps, they've got the space. They're generally easy houses to retrofit. Plus, they've got fantastic roofs generally for the solar. So you're building a whole ecosystem in those homes, and the impact on those household bills are going to be tremendous because you're going to have enough electricity from those solar panels for the heating, for their transport. You're going to address the higher rates of energy poverty in rural areas right there. It's a really, really clear way where we can make the lives of Europeans better.
This is Shine On Policycast, Solar Power Europe's podcast dedicated to EU policy about solar, with updates in 20 minutes or less. So today we're joined by Adrian Hiel, who is the new director at the Electrification Alliance. So welcome, Adrian.
Thanks very much. It's great to be here.
So it's a new role, actually, this director of the Electrification Alliance, which kind of marks a new era for the Alliance, which has been around for a few years. So maybe you can tell us a bit about, what you're bringing to the role and what this new era means for electrification.
Yeah, happy to. So I'm originally from Canada, but I've been here in Brussels for over 20 years now, working in energy and working in EU affairs. Electrification has come on in the agenda massively in especially last half year, right? We've kind of dallied with all the other solutions, and now we've got a consensus that actually electrification is going to do the heavy lifting. So the conversation now is about how do we do it, and that's a much more exciting conversation. Yeah. It's about balance sheets, it's about investments, and it's about really quantifying the benefits.
So the mainstreaming has happened, and now it's about really making it happen on the ground.
Yeah,
and I think that's a useful point to pick up on, because electrification as a word is, it's quite a big word. It has different meanings for different people and things like that. But in the real world for you, what does electrification mean? Is there good examples that you're always thinking about or telling policymakers about?
I mean, for me, electrification is just about doing things in a better way with better energy, right? Invariably, you're talking about processes that are going to be cleaner, they're going to be quieter, they're going to be safer, they're going to be more efficient. There's a whole slew of benefits around electrification. But primarily, it's going to be about cost, it's going to be about energy security, and it's going to be about emissions. I mean, honestly, one of my favorite stories is actually about my grandfather, right? So he was a Dutch engineer who emigrated to Canada back in the 50s. And by the 80s, he was a technician, a heating and cooling technician. And he actually built his own heat pump to heat his house in suburban Toronto back in the 80s. So oftentimes I hear stories, especially in markets where heat pumps aren't well established, that the technology isn't ready yet, or they don't work in this type of house or this type of climate. And I was thinking, if my grandfather could build his own heat pump
in the
80s, which is 40 years ago now. Heat pumps work everywhere. And it will become the no-brainer option in more and more countries as we address some of the more structural issues. But that, on a personal note, that's one of my favorite electrification stories. On an industrial basis, I get really, really excited about the potential for low temperature heating, whether that's in breweries and bakeries and pulp and paper making. There's a huge amount of potential there where we can switch a lot of processes that use a massive amount of energy. I mean, paper industry uses about 10 billion cubic meters of gas a year. And it's a massive amount. And it can be switched entirely to European energy using heat pumps, so that's super efficient. It can lower their costs, but also that's money that's then going into the rest of the European economy as opposed to being sent overseas to other countries.
And if we talk about energy security there, how exactly does electrification mean energy security, right? Like, how do we follow those links? So, okay, we're going to plug in my car rather than pump it full of petrol. So what is that link? Where is energy security coming from?
Fundamentally, electrification is about using European energy and not being at the whim and at the at risk from foreign governments who do not have our best interests at heart. I mean, if we look at some of the major exporters, specifically of gas, Russia, Qatar was embroiled in a scandal last year of corruption in the parliament. The US is trying to strong-arm Europe into buying more gas than we could actually ever use. These people don't have our best interests at heart. So by switching to European energy in our homes, in our industry, and in our transport, we're protecting ourselves from those influences.
So then, I mean, electrification is a great solution then for the energy security approach, because it's going to be, the electricity is going to come from homegrown solar and renewables and clean energy. So how do we make it go faster? Because, I mean, for us, we're convinced, right? It works. It's great. Let's get it out there. But what are the blockades? Because the rates of electrification right now are not so high, or as high as they could be, right?
Well, it depends where you're looking,
Okay.
right? Some countries within the EU are doing phenomenally well when it comes to electrification, especially in the Nordics, to generalize, right? So the blockages, to be honest, are really they vary depending on the member state you're talking about. So here in Belgium, right, we've got a tax regime that really favors gas over electricity. And that made sense 30 years ago when we were generating electricity from coal, right? Tax it higher, much like alcohol and cigarettes. We want people to use less because it's harmful. Well, that's not the case anymore.
Yeah, we don't want to disincentivize it.
No, exactly. So let's stop taxing it like cigarettes and alcohol, and let's make it cheaper. Let's make the gas a little bit more expensive, balance it out. And then electrification can start to really take off here in Belgium and in other countries that have that issue.
And then it's interesting to hear about it at the national level, but we know, last year the Commission, in a kind of great coup, said that they would come forward with an electrification action plan. And there's public consultations happening, and that plan's hopefully coming next year, I guess.
March, yep.
Yeah, March. So what does that plan look like? What do we want it to look like? What do you want it to look like?
Well, the first thing that we want to see in the plan is really, let's implement all the stuff we've already agreed, right? Even going back to the 2009 Clean Energy for All package, making sure that people have the ability to use dynamic tariffs. Right now, far too many people don't have the option of using electricity when it's clean and abundant and cheap. So that's a really fundamental thing. Let's do all the stuff we already agreed. And then beyond that, there's a whole list of small tweaks we can do to the electricity market and the industrial market in Europe. One of the big things that will come out of this is an industrial electrification auction. We're really excited about that, because one of the barriers is that CapEx, OpEx divide that needs to be bridged for industries that want to electrify. So with this auction, we're going to help those companies put in the equipment they need to electrify, and then they can benefit from the cheap, clean European electricity afterwards. So that's a really exciting part. We want to see things like a rural homes electrification mission, right? Rural areas tend to spend twice as much on transport. So if they're on EVs, they're going to save a fortune. They spend more on heating because they're on propane or on heating oil.
My parents have a oil tank in their backyard, which it's 2025. That feels crazy, no?
Right, exactly. And if we give them heat pumps, they've got the space. They're generally easy houses to retrofit. Plus, they've got fantastic roofs generally for the solar. So you're building a whole ecosystem in those homes, and the impact on those household bills are going to be tremendous, because you're going to have enough electricity from those solar panels for the heating, for their transport. You're going to address the higher rates of energy poverty in rural areas right there. It's a really, really clear way where we can make the lives of Europeans better.
So we're hoping that some of those parts then are coming at least in March. But between now and March, what does our timeline look like? Like, are there some key highlights that we're looking forward to? Key dates, perhaps, in the calendar?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a whole slew of things going on. Frankly, even just the last 2 months, we've seen huge proclamations from the Commission, from various commissioners highlighting the importance of electrification. We're going to have a grids package on December 10th. Yes. That's due now. The day before that, we're going to have a big event here in Brussels with the Electrification Alliance. We're going to have Michael Liebreich. We're going to have Kingsmill Bond from Ember. We're going to have a full day of discussion about really the nuts and bolts of how we help these industries electrify, especially the ones where it's really, really easy. The technology is there. We're not trying to develop anything new. We're trying to get the existing technology that's made in Europe installed by Europeans into European businesses, right? We're going to cut their fossil fuel bills and we're going to clean up the emissions at the same time. So we're going to have a full day of discussions around that. I think it's going to be really, really exciting.
Great. And that's December 9th?
That's December 9th. And then, you've got other things other than the grids package, the electrification action plan in March. We're going to have some big events on EVs in early March that Your Electric is hosting. We're looking at another date in January on EVs, because obviously there's a big discussion around the 2035 emission standards right now. And it's really, I cannot stress enough how important it is that we maintain that. Take it out of mobility, all that flexible demand, all those batteries from the cars, they're going to be really, really important for the way we run our electrical system. If we don't have that demand, we're going to see more curtailment. We're going to see higher system costs. We're going to make it that much more difficult to decarbonize our buildings and our industry if we don't have the cars, because this is all one system. So it's really important that we protect those 2035 car standards and make sure they're implemented.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the balancing services to the grids that they can provide, I mean, there's this fun case study in California where it's I think 3 gigawatts of batteries in school buses alone.
Yep.
Right. And that's a huge boon for a grid that, has abundance of solar and renewables. So a lot of exciting dates there to look forward to. I think a call to action for our listeners is to check out and register for the event on the 9th of December in the Parliament with some really great speakers there. But thanks so much, Adrian, for all your insights today and all your work as the new Mr. Electrification. And I'm sure we'll be hearing much more from you from the weeks and months to come.
All right. Well, thanks very much for having me. It's been great.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Shine On Policycast. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to get updates about new episodes. Shine on.